Neymar was more talented than Cristiano Ronaldo, and he could have been as great as Messi if he wasn't Brazilian. Before you bring out your pitchforks, it'd be good to know that Lula, the president of Brazil, agrees with me. Here's a tweet he posted publicly about a year ago. This tweet about an arch-rival from Argentina coming from the sitting president of Brazil got me thinking about the longevity of Brazilian attackers. Just think about it. Of course, Brazilians were pissed, but Lula had a point. Pelé retired from the Seleção at 31. A few years later, he moved to the US to play for the New York Cosmos. Ronaldo's last international tournament was the 2006 FIFA World Cup at the age of 30, but by then he was already struggling with weight issues. At 31, Ronaldinho was already back at Flamengo. Look at Neymar. By the time he turned 30, he was already shopping offers from Saudi Arabia, but due to injuries and other issues, he now barely features for Al Hilal, his new club. Let's move away from the legends of the game for a moment. Think of Brazilian attackers who lit up the European and world stage. Orc, Diego Costa, Oscar, and many others. How many of them played at the highest level deep into their 30s? Now compare them to attackers like Ian Robben, Frank Ribery, Luca Toni, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Alexandre Del Piero, Thomas Muller, and others who continue to play at an elite level deep into their 30s. You can see the difference, right? Alright, join me as we explore why Brazilian attackers fail to reach the very top once they're past the age of 30. While looking at the lives of the most iconic Brazilian footballers who declined after 30, I noticed an interesting similarity: their lifestyles. Let's go back to that Lula quote. Although this tweet was poorly received by the populace, it pointed out stark differences between the European football ethos and the Brazilian equivalent. In the past, footballers everywhere partied a lot. The obvious example has to be Diego Maradona. Well, we all saw how that panned out. The culture was similar in Europe, with players like Paul Gascoigne, Robbie Fowler, and the Spice Boys of Liverpool. Even further east, the talented class of Ukrainian footballers like Oleksandr Aliyev and Artem Lipsky are famous for the term drinking away their talent. By the early 2000s, European football took a negative stance on partying and drinking. The culture of being on the tabloid and catching a pint after a game became taboo and unprofessional. Imagine the media firestorm if Marcus Rashford was caught at a party after a game. Oh wait, never mind. But Brazilians did not get the memo. For all their on-field brilliance, they always struggled with staying out of trouble off the pitch. Coming from a very vibrant and jovial culture, Brazilians embrace the life of enjoyment a little tighter than Europeans and other Americans. It is their way of life, it is how they play, it is joga bonito. One example that comes to mind is Adriano. In the mid-2000s, Adriano was Ronaldo's strike partner and successor at Inter Milan. At one point, he was one of the best strikers in the world. But then tragedy struck with the loss of his father.
I mean, I played with great champions, but the one I felt that could do it longer was, and he didn't do it, was Adriano when I was in Inter. But it lasted for a short time.
From grace and tragedy, Ronaldinho doesn't get up that easily. Ronaldinho never turned down an opportunity to check out a salsa bar. His escapades at clubs fed the paparazzi for years, and it was so bad that clubs had to put an anti-clubbing clause in his contracts. One time he was put on camera at the nightclub at 3 AM, and guess what? He had an all-important match against Manchester United less than 24 hours later. Of course, Ronaldinho still razzled and dazzled in spite of his lifestyle, but imagine what could have been if he had taken his fitness a bit more seriously. Another reason for quick burnout is a lack of motivation. Neymar is a prime example of Brazilians losing focus and drive at their peak. From 2015 to 2017, Neymar was on track to becoming the best player in the world. But you see that fire that Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi had. Neymar never showed the same level of motivation. Not consistently, at least. We only saw glimpses of that killer mindset when he rubbed shoulders with Messi and inspired that famous 6-1 victory against PSG. And for some reason, Neymar mysteriously gets injured every year right before his sister's birthday. Okay, that's a joke. But his absence during that period are worth looking into. Neymar is now 32 and probably jolly riding somewhere in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And after a year of being on the sidelines and completing side quests, he has absolutely no chance of fulfilling his potential. Okay, it's time to talk about injuries. Picture the Brazilian Serie A. What comes to mind? Exciting Brazilian footballers pulling off elasticos, not making defenders and scoring rabonas all day. Well, you're wrong. Joga bonito is going extinct at the top level in Brazil. One reason is that the defending in the Brazilian Serie A is borderline criminal. Veteran defenders resort to the dark arts and even physical assault to stop attackers. This brings up another issue. Most Brazilian wunderkinds start playing with the first team early. That's like throwing 15-year-olds to the wolves and hoping they come out unscathed. Think of someone like Endrick, who made his debut for Palmeiras at 16. That accumulation of crunching tackles on developing joints would take a toll eventually. The same thing happened to Neymar and Hazard. Now compare that to Ethan Nwaneri or Phil Foden, who had to inch their way into the first team gradually. I know. Bellingham and Rooney also made their debuts quite early, but they both already looked like grown men. They were also protected to some extent. Ronaldo Nazario would have been the greatest player of his generation, if not for his battles with recurring knee injuries. And to think he came back from a 2-year hiatus to win the 2002 World Cup for Brazil, what a tragedy. And this leads me to the crazy schedule of Brazilian football. A rising star like Estevão Willian would have to play through this grueling schedule even before they leave for Europe. When they eventually reach the big stage, the relentless physical demands of the game leave little room for rest and self-care. Sadly, this causes them to burn out before they even reach their prime. Starting at a very young age also leads to burnout from peaking earlier than your peers. Before Neymar, Robinho was once the next big star in Brazilian football. After showing early promise at Santos, the young man didn't take long to find a place at the Santiago Bernabeu. Winning his first La Liga title in his second season saw the young star hit the height of Spanish football at 22. I remember watching him in awe against Malaga in 2005. But that was the height of Robinho's career. It all went downhill from there. He first moved to Manchester City without pulling up any trees before joining Milan. Although he was decent at Milan, he never reached the lofty heights that befit his talent. Felipe Coutinho also peaked at Liverpool, then he left for Barcelona and triggered the $100 million curse. He later went on to appear as a sub for Bayern Munich during their run to the Champions League before fading into obscurity at Aston Villa. One often overlooked reason for the quick decline of Brazilian footballers is how different their style of football is from that of the Europeans. Brazilian football, or joga bonito, thrives on spontaneity and individual brilliance, guided by intuition rather than rigid playbooks. In European leagues, coaches expect players to fit into predefined patterns of positional play, pressing, or defensive organization. Brazilian legend Rivaldo struggled to adapt at Barcelona despite being one of the most talented attackers of his generation. Rivaldo had to adapt to the positional discipline demanded by his coaches. Despite winning titles, Rivaldo yearned for the freedom he enjoyed back home. He eventually left Barca for free. There is also a cultural distinction between the European and Brazilian cultures beyond football. From the favelas to the stadiums, football in Brazil is a communal experience. Players are seen as representatives of their neighborhoods and the nation, but the European style is quite individualistic and reserved. As a fan, I celebrate the intricate gameplay of European teams and the samba flair of Brazilian players. It's just a shame that for Brazilians, the pull of home and feeling of loneliness bleeds into their on-field performances. The weight of expectation in Brazilian football is as heavy as the lush rainforest canopy that covers the land. Every young Brazilian talent is heralded as the heir to the throne once occupied by Pelé. Bobby Hendrick is already being touted as the new heir. For these guys, every touch, every pass, every shot is scrutinized against the backdrop of history. Vinicius is now the scapegoat and the face of an underwhelming Brazilian national team. His stats will always be compared to those before him. But this is not new. Neymar was compared to Pelé, then Ronaldinho, and every other Brazilian in the GOAT debate. Now that he has faded into the sands of Saudi football, Hendrick will become the next target for the mountain of pressure and public scrutiny. Well, he's finally joined Real Madrid, so what pressure?
3, 2, 1.
But beyond the glare of stadium lights lies a quieter, more crushing burden, the weight of family expectations. You see, many Brazilian footballers are born into abject poverty. Glamorize favelas and hoods all you want, but life in these places is hell. Some have to escape gang violence and petty crime in search of greener pastures. So for the footballers who make it to the global stage, success is a lifeline for those they hold dear. The pressure to provide, to uplift, to secure a better future for loved ones hang heavy. Each paycheck or endorsement deal comes with the weight of responsibility, a reminder of the sacrifices made and the dreams deferred to fund your dreams. This same weight of expectation drove Lucas Paqueta to the bookies. Oscar, Alex Teixeira and Hawk simply departed from European football, choosing financial sustenance over personal glory. Others grappled with lifestyles not compatible with longevity in a beautiful game. It's unfortunate, but success is fleeting for Brazilian football superstars. The best we can do is honor these young men who dared to chase their dreams while mourning those whose stars burned too bright, too soon. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe as we bring you more quality sports content and stories. You can also find us on other socials through the links in the description. See you in the next video.